Uh-oh.
I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. He couldn't. You know, like everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish. You know.
Do you not think Spence will be in the Hall of Fame?
Right now? No, how?
Yeah, he's right, dude. He's right.
How? You know, he fought in one division. You know,
he never unified the belts.
He unified.
He did unify.
You know,
IBF.
He unified.
WBA, was it?
He had three.
Yeah.
He had the
but he didn't
WBC,
unify all
WBA,
four. He wasn't
IBF.
undisputed.
Huh?
He wasn't undisputed.
He wasn't. No, but what I'm saying is, they already called him a weight bully, right? He beat Kell Brook coming off of a loss, an eye injury. You know, he beat Sean Porter.
In all fairness, he had to go over there to get that.
Like I said, you know what I mean? That's a good win. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him or, you know,
I understand
things like that. But I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolades that he didn't got right now.
Oh, Terrence has managed to ruffle some feathers with that contention, with that insight, that he doesn't believe, based on accomplishments, Errol Spence Jr. gets into the Hall of Fame. Brew Millionaire said, someone asked Terrence Crawford if Marvin Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard are both in the Hall of Fame. Sugar was a champion at welter, a champion at middle, and a champion at light heavy, where Errol was only a champion at one weight, at welter. I wouldn't go comparing Errol Spence Jr. to Sugar Ray Leonard. I wouldn't compare him to Marvin Hagler either. Marvin Hagler is widely regarded as one of the best middleweights the sport has ever seen, where Errol is not regarded as one of the best welterweights the sport has ever seen.
He literally isn't.
Brew Millionaire continued, 3 belts, none vacant, 6 title defenses, 7 in total.
It's not actually that many.
Beat potentially 3 Hall of Famers.
We'll see. We'll see if the guys he beat get into the Hall.
Sold over 2 million pay-per-views. You'd think Marvin wouldn't get in, losing to Sugar Ray Leonard, listening to this baseless shit, but don't forget, Brew, that before he loses to Sugar Ray Leonard, he beats the brakes off of Tommy Hearns.
It was a legendary fight. Who's Errol Spence Jr.'s Tommy Hearns?
He beat Roberto Duran as well, who eventually moved up in weight, up to middleweight. Hagler beat him too. So that when you relegate Marvin Hagler and his robust body of work to Errol Spence Jr., that is a gross oversight. That's everybody's go-to, Marvin Hagler, because Marvin was only ever a champion at one weight, but that was a very different boxing landscape than what we see now. There wasn't a super middleweight division for Marvin to move up to, whereas Errol, he had a junior middleweight division right there that he could have moved up to, but he never made it there.
Never Ring Magazine, never Lineal.
Not undisputed, obviously, and when people look back on this era of welterweights, it will be Terrence Crawford that stands out as the #1 welterweight, not Errol. So with all those things in mind, does he have a Hall of Fame resume? Does he get into the Hall?
Another guy who goes by the name Designer Peds said, funny hearing this guy say this when he beat Kell, who had 2 broken eyes, Amir No-Chin Khan, after he died, and his biggest and best win is Spence, who he said isn't a Hall of Famer, and his whole resume is ass. Him doing resume checks with his resume is hilarious.
And I disagree with all of that. Terrence's resume was always more robust and always more impressive to me than Errol's because he's fought more champions across more weight classes and more top contenders, but because the casuals only recognize the familiar names and the familiar champions, that's all it really takes.
To impress them. That he beat Danny, who lost to Sean, and Sean, who lost to Kel. Kel Brook is actually the best fighter that Errol ever beat.
Everything after that was a step backwards, a step down, not a step up.
I don't think Errol has a Hall of Fame resume, but that doesn't mean he might not get in. If the editorial panel presiding over the Hall of Fame inductions is particularly sympathetic and sentimental, partiality might get him in.
Popularity vote from emotionally attached guys like these guys are emotionally attached. But when I look at Errol's resume, I don't see a Hall of Fame resume. Those are not Hall of Fame accolades.
You were unified, but you were never lineal. You were never Ring Magazine. Now, if you would have beat Terrence, that might have got you in.
The designer Peds guy thinks that Terrence doesn't have a Hall of Fame resume, but only mentioned the welterweights that he fought while he was being frozen out by the PBC.
When he fought Kel Brook and when he fought Amir Khan, that's because the PBC guys wouldn't fight him, so he had to keep busy with someone. But no one's saying that he's going to get into the Hall because of those names.
No, he'll get into the Hall for beating Ricky Burns and Ray Beltran at 135.
He was Ring Magazine and Lineal champion there too.
He'll get into the Hall for beating Victor Postal and Unified champion Julius Longdongo.
He was Ring Magazine and Lineal champion there too.
He'll get into the Hall for beating Jeff Horn and Errol Spence Jr., both champions at welterweight.
He was Ring Magazine and Lineal champion there too.
And for having been an undisputed champion in 2 divisions, having been a champion overall in 4, that's what's going to get Terrence Crawford in the Hall. And that is a far more robust body of work than what you get from Errol. You're just mad that Errol lost. And looking at his resume, I can't say that beating Kel Brook off a loss, Sean Porter who lost to Kel, and Danny who lost to Sean gets you in the Hall.
Anecdotally, I don't look at Errol Spence Jr. as one of these guys that you could drop him in any era of boxing and he would be competitive. I don't think so. I don't think he could deal with that era of welterweights like we saw in the Leonard era. Tommy Hearns, guys like that. I don't even know that Errol would beat Mark Breland.
I really don't think that Errol would make it in that era of welterweights with Felix Trinidad and Oscar De La Hoya. No, I think they would both beat Errol.
I think a prime Manny Pacquiao would beat Errol. I think Floyd Mayweather would beat Errol.
I do. I don't see a generational talent in Errol Spence Jr., and it doesn't help that when I look at his body of work on paper, it doesn't tell that story either, to where he's a generational talent and he's the kind of guy that should go into the Hall. I don't see it.
Not based on talent, not based on ability, accolades, I don't see it. The only way he could get into the Hall for me is sentimentality. If somebody on the panel is sentimental.
You were a unified champion at one weight, but there are a lot of guys like that were unified champions at one weight.
Especially in your era, the 4-belt era, where there are more belts to win.
More belts, more unified champions. I mean, Kenshiro Taraji is a unified champion. He's been unified at 2 weights, not just 1 like Errol. Puma Martinez was a unified champion for a second there. Yanni Bek Alam Kanalai is unified. Zerto Ramirez is unified.
Zerto's a 2-weight champion.
Badu Jack is a 3-weight champion. The only thing that Errol has over those guys is popularity. That he was more popular among casual observers who don't even know what they're looking at.
That's why they thought he'd beat Terrence.
You guys already know what I thought, and you guys already know what I said. For 5 years straight, when they fight, it's gonna look like Errol don't belong in the same ring with him, and the videos are still up.
I don't think Errol Spence Jr. is a Hall of Famer, but he might get in off sentimentality.
Do you ever see Terrence Crawford getting where he is now? And number 2, the fight that he had with Errol Spence. Obviously, that fight's been done and over with, but, you know, we never saw you with Errol. I don't think we'll ever get that. And did you ever see Terrence even getting to where he is right now and possibly being an opponent of yours?
Yeah, I mean, the year 2019, when I was fighting, when I got the Manny Pacquiao contract, was the first time in my life I actually got the phone call to fight Terrence Crawford.
Oh, wow.
But I forget which side of his managerial team from Top Rank or whatever, they were reaching out to me. They were offering me good money, and it was fine. But I just told him, I said, "Look, man, this is nice, but I'm in negotiations with Pacquiao, and I can't say yes. I gotta go get Pac." And you know, it's a great fight for us in our generation.
Indictment against a lot of these PBC guys. They just didn't want to fight Terrence, and you could say, well, Keith was going to go fight Manny. Is that not a bigger fight? Sure, I guess you could say that, but that hardly makes it Terrence Crawford's fault when those fights didn't happen. Keith Thurman himself admitted they tried. They tried to make it. They tried to make a fight with Danny.
Same deal.
Danny instead chose to go fight, what was it, Adrian Granados or Ivan Redcatch or somebody or another, over headlining a pay-per-view, a main event slot, against Terrence Crawford for good money, just like they offered Keith Thurman good money. So when those fights didn't materialize, they didn't want to hold the PBC guys accountable. They instead tried to make it Terrence Crawford's fault because they were happy to see him frozen out.
They pretend like that didn't happen.
Karma has come back for all of them, though, hasn't it? I mean, Errol's career looks like it's all but over. Keith Thurman, he's back, though only momentarily. Danny got stopped in his last fight. Never beat anybody good at welterweight, by the way. Every time they stepped him up, he lost.
While Terrence Crawford is on the cusp of a big Canelo Alvarez showdown, arguably one of the biggest fights to happen in the United States this year.
The same Canelo Alvarez you guys used to think Errol would move up and fight. Do you remember that? They used to say that Errol had usurped Canelo as the face of boxing, and that if he moved up, he would beat him.
Don't see anybody saying that shit anymore.
So I don't imagine that a lot of these guys are happy that Terrence Crawford ended up being the last man standing at welterweight to become a champion again at junior middle. Now he's on the eve of an even bigger fight than the Errol Spence fight was.
And don't let him win that one.
I'm not saying that he's going to. I'm just saying that if he does, there's no way you idiots can keep tearing him down. That would be an even bigger win than the Errol Spence Jr. win. You guys have been doing a lot of mental gymnastics to tear that one down. You can't do that with this one. He's at every disadvantage against Canelo. So if he wins...
Oh, you guys ain't gonna like it. I wouldn't even watch boxing if I were a lot of you guys, because it can't be fun. Watching all these guys you put on a pedestal get taken down a peg.
All of these PBC guys, these PBC hype jobs.
There are really only 2 left.
Both are on borrowed time. No, if I were you guys, I wouldn't enjoy watching boxing at all. Might start watching something else. Maybe the PGA Tour, maybe some golf, some tennis. Because you guys don't know shit about boxing. That's why you characteristically only get behind the hype jobs.
How'd you guys get to be so stupid?
Every iota of success that Terrence Crawford continues to have ruffles their feathers. They tried their best to keep a good man down, and because they couldn't, all they can do is pout. Close to 2 years later.
Suck it up, bitch.
Men's junior middleweight news. George Rose targets major 154 names for Tim Tszyu, but admits the Joey Spencer fight is do or die. Tim Tszyu's promoter at No Limit Boxing, George Rose, has admitted the junior middleweight contender's April 6th fight with Joey Spencer is do or die. Tszyu, 29, endured a rough 2024 with losses to Bakram Murtazaliev and Sebastian Fundora, having started the campaign undefeated, and the pressure is on to bounce back against Joey Spencer early next month. This is the biggest fight of Tim's career, no question, said Rose. April 6th in Newcastle is do or die. Joey Spencer is young, dangerous, and coming to make a name for himself, but Tim, this is about proving he still belongs at the very top. A statement win here rockets him straight back into the mix with the best in the world. Let's be real, 154 is the best division in boxing right now. The names at the top are massive, and Tim's name deserves to be right there with them. A big win against Spencer, and we're talking Jermell Charlo, Keith Thurman, Sebastian Fundora, Errol Spence, Virgil Ortiz, all blockbuster fights that can happen next. There goes George Rose, once again, getting ahead of himself. If Timmy takes care of business next month, I don't think he should be looking at any of those guys. There's more work needs doing.
Starts talking about Charlo.
Charlo's been the long-standing king at 154, never lost in the division, and now he's back. That's a fight that's long overdue for Tim. Keith Thurman just made a massive statement against Brock Jarvis. He's another name that makes a ton of sense. And then there's Fundora. No one's questioning him as the champion after his performance last weekend, but let's be clear. Tim deserves a rematch. After everything that unfolded in his fight, everyone knows what would have gone down without the cut. Run that one back, and Tim wins. Fundora defeated Tszyu in Vegas in 2024, with Tszyu badly inhibited by a gruesome cut when Fundora's elbow collided with his scalp early on. The blood-soaked and impaired Tszyu made it all the way through their fight, but lost via a narrow decision. Then you've got Spence, who's had plenty to say about Tim over the years. Rose added, if he ever wants to step back in the ring, let's make it happen. And Virgil Ortiz? That's an all-action war fans would go crazy for. There's no shortage of big fights. All Tim needs to do is shake off 2024 with a great performance, and he's right back in the thick of all of it. It all starts on April 6th in Newcastle. Expect fireworks.
I think Georgie is getting ahead of himself a little bit. You don't just beat Joey Spencer and all of a sudden you're ready to take on the world. You need to take your time. Not taking your time is what caused all of that to happen last year.
You were in such a hurry to make it in the American market, which isn't even booming right now, by the way, but you were in such a hurry to do that you lost your focus. You lost the Bakram.
You were arrogant.
I've been watching Tim Tszyu for a little over 5 years. And I know that he's a better fighter than what he showed against Bakram. What I saw against Bakram was a guy who's arrogant, a guy who's looking to go home early. He didn't give Bakram the respect that he gave Takeshi Inoue, the respect that he gave Brian Mendoza. With Bakram, he comes out swinging for the fences, looking to make a big statement, likely because he was in a hurry.
Hurry to go home?
A hurry to get back in the winner's bracket because he was coming off that loss to Sebastian. He was arrogant, and he didn't respect the man opposite the ring. And when I say respect, I don't mean lavishing compliments on the guy, glazing him.
The way you respect your opponent is to take him seriously. Don't take him lightly. Don't take him lightly when you're getting ready in camp. Don't take him lightly on the night. And it seems to me that Timmy took Bakram lightly, and he paid for it. Oh, he did.
Respect your opponent. Respect him enough to use your jab.
Set your punches up. Don't just go winging wild shots.
If you fight this guy like he's some kind of a bum, you know who ends up looking like a bum? You end up looking like a bum.
Because you were arrogant, and you didn't take him seriously. Now, you better take Joey Spencer seriously. Oh, I don't have a high opinion of Joey Spencer or his boxing, but we don't really know what kind of headspace Tim is in. He's the kind of guy who's gonna put on a brave face no matter what. Only he knows what's on the inside.
Where outwardly, he'll say all the right things, put his best foot forward, and try again. But we really don't know how much damage may still be there. He's gotta make it past Joey. All those guys George mentioned, he shouldn't be looking at none of them.
Take your time.
Rushing is what costed you last year. Rushing for a knockout. Take your time.
One step at a time.
I wish him well, but I really don't know what he has left.